Lesson 52, Pivot Calculations. In this lesson, we'll take a look at how to change the sum function to sum, count, average, how to show the calculations as normal, or percentage of row, or percentage of column, how to create a calculated field, and why calculations near pivot tables generally fail. Okay, well, here we have a report where we have revenue by region and product. And typically, what we're going to see is sum of revenue, and we're just going to see the numbers here, but we actually have many options in how we display these numbers. We want to go to the field info. So one thing to do is to go to active field and choose field settings. Another item is to come here in the sum of revenue at the bottom of the pivot table field list and choose value field settings. Either one will lead to the same dialog box where we can change from a sum to a count or an average. There's 11 different functions here, including standard deviation, variance. We'll go back to a sum. There's far more options though when we use the second tab, the Show Values As tab. Here, generally, we're always showing values as normal, but we can change that to say, for example, percentage of row. Click OK. Now you'll see that we have items totaling up to 100% going across. Or we could ask for percentage of column. Click OK. Now we get items totaling to 100% going down. Another option is just the percentage of. Another option is percentage of total, where we get to see each item's contribution to add up to 100%. Now, is it possible to show revenue several different ways? For example, as normal, and then perhaps a count, and perhaps a percentage of total? Yes, we can do that. I'm going to remove the product from the column labels because as we add revenue multiple times, I'm going to want those to go across the page. So we'll change the first one to be a regular sum of revenue. We'll choose sum and show values as normal. I'll add revenue again to sum of values. So now you'll see that we have revenue and revenue to. I want to change revenue to be a count. So we'll use active field, field settings, change it to be a count, and we can change this heading from count of revenue to invoice count. Click OK. This will show us that we generated this much revenue from this many invoices. I'll add revenue again, edit this one, and show values as a percentage of total. Change the heading. Click OK. Now what if you don't like this heading back here, sum of revenue? Well, it's funny, you're allowed to change that to anything you want except for the word revenue. Revenue is already a field in the pivot table, so we can't just call this revenue, but we can call it revenue space. Click OK. That's enough to make it different. So here we have revenue, invoice count, percent of total. Maybe I also want to see profit. And let's just change that to be, instead of sum of profit, to be profit space. Okay. Now I would like to add a brand new field. I have revenue and I have profit. I would like to see gross profit percent, which is profit divided by revenue. Well, this is called a calculated field, and when we go to the formulas drop down, we can choose calculated field. I'll call this GP percent. And here I can build the calculation. So I'll backspace to get rid of the 0. Double click on profit, type the divide sign, double click on revenue, and I've added a new field called GP%. We'll click OK. Sum of GP%, of course, is the silliest heading that we could ever use. We'll go back in, change the field settings, and call it GP%. And I'm going to change the number format as a percentage with 1 decimal place. Click OK, click OK. All right, so now we've built a pivot table where we have several values going across the report. Revenue, the number of invoices, the percentage of total, the profit, and gross profit percent. Now, in each case, we have something different. This is just the regular normal view. This is revenue where we're using a different calculation, a count instead of a sum. Here's revenue where we're showing it not as normal, but as a percentage of total. Profit is just another field, and GP% is a brand new calculated field. Now, I'll point out that Excel offers something called calculated items, and I'm not a big fan of these, and generally I don't cover them. The problem with a calculated item is that you're going to cause your totals to be incorrect. If we would add a calculated item along the row labels, the 6.7 million is going to change, and because of that, I generally stay away from calculated items. Instead, if I needed to group the West and Central into a new super region, I would group those using the concepts from Lesson 51. All right, now one last issue here when we're talking about calculations, and this happens when we're coming outside of the table. If we come outside of the table and we need to calculate something, for example, let me just do an average invoice. So I'll take the revenue field divided by the count field. And it turns out that on average, those invoices are 11,928. If I copy down, amazingly, every region has exactly 11,928. That's really not possible. It's just too weird. There's no way that coincidentally all of those could have the exact same value. And when we go back and look at this formula, somehow Excel built a bizarre formula. Instead of saying B5 divided by C5, it's using this getPivotData function. Well, okay, I understand this is a new function. It's been around since Excel 2002, and it is pretty cool. It allows you to get one single value from a pivot table. Like, for example, here we're getting the region East total revenue. And Microsoft is so proud of this function, they insert it automatically anytime that a formula from outside the pivot table points inside the pivot table. Well, the problem is that formula cannot be copied because it still asks for East each time, and I really don't want to go through and edit the formula to say that we want to change this to Central and Central or West and West. So there's two solutions to this problem. The first solution is not to use the mouse or the arrow keys when you're building the formula. Just say equal B5 divided by C5. Now we get a formula that can easily be copied and will show us the correct answer on the other rows. The other option is fairly buried, but it's less buried now. We can actually get to it from the Pivot Table ribbon tabs. If we go to Pivot Table Tools Options, go to the first Pivot Table dropdown, and then the Options dropdown, there is now a setting called Generate Get Pivot Data. Simply turn that off. And now you're free to build your formulas with the mouse or with the arrow. So the equal sign, revenue, divided by invoice count will work, or if you use the arrow keys, that works as well. It builds just regular formulas that can easily be copied instead of having to deal with the Get Pivot Data function. Well, there you have it. A whole bunch of different calculation options when you're using pivot tables makes pivot tables even more robust and flexible. I hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than Live Lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.